And hey guys, what's up? I hope you're all doing great. Welcome to the channel where we talk about anything related to comic books. If you clicked this video, you have probably heard about the infamous Clone Saga, a Spider-Man event that lasted for about 2 years, from 1994 to 1996. This whole thing actually started in 1974, when the Jackal made his first appearance, but it hadn't yet taken on the proportions it did later. Before we begin, I would like to thank Reeds for his contribution in this video. He has an Instagram page where he regularly posts comic book related stuff that you might like, so I am leaving a link in the description. So, with no further ado, let's start. After Gwen Stacy's tragic death at the hands of the Green Goblin, her college professor Miles Warren blamed Spider-Man for it. To get back at Spidey emotionally, Warren created a clone of Gwen using her genetic samples. This clone confronted Peter, causing quite a shock. Spider-Man realized there was also a clone of himself. Things escalated at C Stadium, where the Jackal dragged Spider-Man and forced him to battle his own clone. Both the clone and the Jackal died in an explosion, and Spider-Man dumped the clone's body in a smokestack. But how could they know which one was the clone and which the original, since both of them had the exact same memories? Peter just assumed he was the real deal. Gwen's clone, who had left the city, eventually reappeared, and the High Evolutionary revealed that Gwen was never cloned, but a woman, Joyce Delany, was infected with a virus that only simulated cloning. They later retconned this, suggesting the High Evolutionary was just jealous of the Jackal's achievements and lied about his cloning methods. If you think all these are complicated, then I assure you that this is nothing compared to what will come next. We're just getting started. 5 years after the C Stadium incident, a mysterious man visited Aunt May in the hospital. To Peter's shock, he discovered that this man was actually his clone. But didn't the clone die? Well, let me explain. The C Stadium events were retconned many times, but the truth is that the Jackal survived. The Jackal who died was, in fact, a clone. After the explosion, she conducted tests on both Spider-Man and the Spider-Clone to determine the real one. Then he injected the clone with a death-simulating serum, explaining why Spider-Man thought he was dead, and threw him into the smokestack. However, the Jackal saved the clone and disposed of a different, failed clone in the smokestack. The clone, now using the name Ben Reilly, lived on the road for 5 years, and during his journeys he fell in love with Elizabeth Tyne and battled Kane, another one of the Jackal's clones who was jealous of Ben's happiness. Despite Kane initially being a successful clone, his body started degenerating, forcing him to wear a special suit to slow down the process. Ben returned to New York after learning about Aunt May's condition, leading to a clash with Peter. They later teamed up to face Judas Traveler at Ravencroft. Ben then adopted the name Scarlet Spider and started fighting crime. His first challenge in this new role was taking on Venom. Ben defeated Venom and even stripped off his symbiote, proving he was more than just a clone of Peter. Meanwhile, Kane went on a killing spree, targeting villains. Why, you ask? Kane had disturbing visions of someone targeting Mary Jane, Peter Parker's wife, and wanted to eliminate any potential threats. Despite his jealousy for Ben and Peter, Kane always felt like they were his brothers. He wished to see them dead, but at the same time, he cared about them. Okay, let's be honest, he was just a complete nutcase. Meanwhile, MJ surprised Peter with her pregnancy. Didn't expect that, huh? Well, if Peter wanted his kid to have a father, he'd better stay alive. However, as Spider-Man he faced a new threat, the return of the Jackal, who had been secretly alive. When Peter and Ben stumbled upon one of his old labs, they confronted an upgraded clone of Miles Warren, who didn't want to get hurt until his plan succeeded. This Jackal clone, let's call him just Jackal, played mind games with Peter and Ben, and because he was much stronger than the original Warren, the two Spider-Men couldn't defeat him, allowing him to escape after destroying his lab. Jackal couldn't resist adding more confusion by hinting that both Peter and Ben could be clones. Another clone claiming to be the real Peter Parker emerged, but he was actually sent by the Jackal to kill Peter, Ben, Kane, and Mary Jane. They defeated him, but he would return later as Spider-Side. Oh, and remember about Aunt May's condition? Well, she got well, and then died. It was later revealed that he didn't actually die, but the mastermind of the Clone Saga had replaced her with an actress. I will reveal that mastermind later. Anyway, May's death seemed permanent at the time, so it's of no concern for now. After her funeral, Peter was arrested for a murder he didn't commit, but it was actually Kane who did the killing. Ben, who wasn't supposed to exist, was seen at the crime scene, so they went after Peter, the person Ben was supposed to be. Eventually, Kane confessed to the murder and Peter was released from prison. But then, a test by Sword Trainer, a friend of Ben Riley, revealed the shocking twist. Peter was the clone and Ben was the original. Quite the unexpected turn, huh? Peter's world turned upside down when the test results revealed that he was the clone. However, he doubted the results, thinking that Sword had changed them in Ben's favor. But there was no time for arguments, as the jackal returned with a plan to mutate humanity using a dangerous bomb. With a clone army and Spidercide on his side, he seemed unstoppable. Spidercide even murdered Kane, only for Kane to be placed in a regeneration pod by the jackal. Because of his stupidity, the jackal, while trying to save a clone of Gwen Stacy, fell off a building and died for good. But remember, he was just another clone, and the original Miles Warren was still out there. After deactivating the bomb and saving the day, more complications arose. The jackal had programmed the spider clone to kill Mary Jane, forcing Peter to reluctantly go after her. However, Peter resisted the jackal's command. After these events, Peter felt that being Spider-Man put his family in danger. He decided to leave New York and let Ben take up the mantle. Peter and MJ moved to Portland while Ben embraced his new life, got some new, awesome threads, and became New York's one and only Spider-Man. At some point, Ben fought Spidercide again, but the latter ended up in Ravencroft. Meanwhile, Peter lost his powers, making him vulnerable to opponents like Gregor. Sometime later, after Ben had settled into his new life, he found a skeleton dressed as Spider-Man in a smokestack. This was the same failed clone I told you about earlier. Peter and MJ returned to New York upon hearing about the skeleton, fearing it could belong to the original Spider-Man. Ben stole the skeleton from the morgue for examination, leading to people accusing him of the murder of the original Spider-Man. J. Jonah Jameson even hired a scientist to generate an image of the person the skeleton belonged to, but they doubted his machine's credibility as it generated the same image twice because the scientist had previously used Peter's head structure as demonstration. Ben had Hank Pym examine the skeleton, confirming it was another clone. Meanwhile, Sword Trainer, secretly working with Gaunt for the mysterious mastermind, aimed to ruin Peter and Ben's lives. The Cell 12, a team of superpowered criminals, attacked Peter, who was powerless. The Hobgoblin burned down Ben's workplace and framed him, so Ben was accused of arson. He eventually caught the Hobgoblin and forced him to confess, thus clearing his name. Later, Kane returned with Elizabeth Tyne, Ben's former girlfriend from his years on the road. For a long time, Ben believed Elizabeth was dead, but it was all part of Kane's plan to ruin Ben's life. Elizabeth, going by the name Janine, was wanted by the police for her abusive father's murder, which Ben thought she had a valid reason for. Kane originally intended to die and take Ben and Janine with him, but ultimately he chose to protect Ben and Elizabeth, turning himself in, and Janine followed his example. As for Peter, after the Cell 12 attacked him, he initially appeared to be fine, but fell into a coma. This coma was actually his body's way of resetting itself, and when he woke up, his powers had returned. I think you can see where this is going. Mary Jane's pregnancy took a tragic turn when she was drugged and went into premature labor. She was made to believe the baby was stillborn, but in reality, the mastermind had orchestrated the baby's disappearance, which still remains a mystery, but we assume they killed the baby. And now the big reveal. The mastermind behind the entire Clone Saga was none other than Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. He survived his supposed death thanks to the Goblin serum in his veins. But what actually happened in Shea Stadium? Before he started working for Osborn, Sword Trainer had been working for the High Evolutionary and was sent to spy on the Jackal, and even became his assistant. After being caught stealing some of Warren's files by an agent of Norman Osborn, he was blackmailed into working for Norman. After the explosion in Shea Stadium, the Jackal's initial intention was to have the original Spider-Man thrown in the smokestack so that he could later change his memories and make him think he's the clone, thus ruining his life. After examining both of them, he injected the real Peter Parker with a serum that simulated death. However, he was unaware that Seward had sabotaged his equipment, making him think the clone was the original, thus preventing the Jackal from getting his revenge on the actual Spider-Man. The Jackal devoted his efforts to the wrong target, convinced he was the real Spider-Man. He carried Ben out of the smokestack and dumped inside a failed clone, the skeleton of which was found years later. He planted in Ben's mind the belief he was the clone, which was actually true, and sent him wandering for years. Osborn wanted to ruin Parker's life himself, and that's why he didn't want the Jackal interfering with his plan. He even had Sword create more fake test results, so that Peter would think he's the clone and lose his mind. Then he hired Gaunt and Cell 12 to mess up his life even more, and he revealed the skeleton to cause further confusion. And finally, he hired an agent to kill Peter's baby, taking away the last inch of happiness he had in his life. Norman's plan was perfect, and it was finally time for the Green Goblin to appear. On Halloween, the Green Goblin attacked Peter and revealed the truth. Peter was the original and Ben was the clone. During the showdown, Ben sacrificed himself to save Peter, confirming he was the clone since his body degenerated and turned into ashes after he died. Afterwards, they held a wake at Aunt May's house to celebrate the life of a great hero and friend. The Clone Saga was finally over, but the Goblin's plans for Peter were not. However, this, my friends, is a story for another time. So, you are probably wondering where you can read all this stuff. I'd suggest you get Spider-Man The Original Clone Saga, which tells the story of Gwen's clone and the fight at Shea Stadium before the many retcons. Then you have two options regarding the rest of the Clone Saga. You can either buy them in omnibus or trade paperback format. So you would either get Spider-Man Clone Saga Omnibus 1 and 2 and Ben Reilly Omnibus 1 and 2, or Spider-Man The Complete Clone Saga Epic 1 to 5 and Complete Ben Reilly Epic 1 to 6. It's up to you to choose the format you prefer. Well guys, this was the Clone Saga. I hope you enjoyed this video and that I helped you have a better comprehension of this extremely confusing event. Tell me in the comments if you'd like to see other clone related videos, since there is also a Clone Saga sequel called The Clone Conspiracy that you might be interested in. If you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you liked, subscribed and allowed all notifications. So, until the next time, goodbye true believers!